the targeted killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani by U.S. Troops has Iranian officials vowing revenge, but Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says it was the right call. Take a look.
It's very clear the world's a safer place today. Qasem Soleimani no longer walks the planet. This was a bad guy. We took him off the playing field, and that's important because this was the fellow who was the glue, who was conducting active plotting against the United States of America, putting American lives at risk. President Trump made the right decision to stop Qasem Soleimani from the terror campaign that he'd been engaged in against America. The world is a safer place.
Well, that's the question. Is the world a safer place right now? Joining us in Hot Topics to break this down, please welcome ABC News political director Rick Klein. Hey, Rick.
Welcome.
Hey, guys. So, what has happened? What's happening? That's the real question I think everybody wants to know. What exactly does this mean for us?
I think there's a disconnect now between talk and action. The Iranians are talking as if we're already at war. They're not acting that way, at least not yet. Maybe we'll get there, and that's, I think, a lot of the tension. And I think there's a difference between saying the world is a safer place versus it being a better place. No one is going to argue that, that having a bad guy off the face of the planet isn't a good thing. But where they will argue is whether it makes a difference or not. And that's what remains to be seen when you have a replacement already named, when you don't have any confirmation from the White House whether the active imminent plot that we don't know about is still ongoing. We don't know if we're actually in a safer spot or maybe a more dangerous spot on the brink of war.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's not a safer world when there's retaliation in the offing. So I don't see how it's a safer world. That's just spin. But Elizabeth Warren, who's running for president, she says that Trump ordered Soleimani's killing to distract from the impeachment. And she's not the only one saying that. They call this wag the dog. Mm-hmm. Start a war to get people distracted from the fact that, you just ready to get impeached. So do you agree with that? And another question is, can you impeach a president during a war, for example?
Well, I don't think we know what all the motivations were yet. It's on the White House, it's on the administration to present the evidence that shows why this was an imminent threat. As Senator Warren has said, why not last week or last month or next month? Why now in the middle of it? We just don't know yet. And of course, there's a credibility gap between this White House and the American people, and of course, the candidates for president.
Pretty wide gap.
A wide gap, yes.
Well, he now is up to, I believe, 14,000 lies.
The Washington Post
Washington Post is counting his lies. So 14,000. Why would anybody believe anything he says?
And your question on impeachment is actually, it's an open question in the Democratic Party. Yeah, you can impeach a president. They've already impeached a president. They could try a president in the middle of a war, if you like. There's some Democrats who view that as a mistake and say that they're walking into a trap if they pick up the ball now on impeachment in the middle of all of this. There's others who say this is why we need to impeach the president because of actions like this. Right. So I think there's a bit of a battle inside the Democratic Party to define where you go with impeachment right now.
Right.
Well, Rick, yesterday Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that Soleimani was, quote, actively plotting against the American public and that Trump made the right decision. I was actually really surprised to see things like World War III trending, just given the fact that Soleimani was responsible for over 600 American deaths, go to Walter Reed, God knows how many other injuries. Why do you think people are reacting the way that they are? Do you think it's just because there is this trust gap, if you will, between the President of the United States and the American public? Because for me, when a big bad terrorist gets blown up, I'm happy about it. Yeah,
I think there's two things going on. One is that trust gap. There's not like this White House has inspired a lot of confidence in its stories that as has been communicated to Congress, to the American people over time. I think the other piece of it that's important is we just don't know what that imminent threat was. And if the White House comes forward with that information, I saw Secretary Pompeo on the shows yesterday repeatedly asked, is that threat gone now that Soleimani's gone? Do we know that you don't have to worry about that anymore? He hasn't been able to say that.
Have we seen the intel on this so-called threat?
No. Well, the president says he's considering releasing it. I think it'd be of interest to a lot of people to find out why exactly this was the moment and what the argument for going after him in that way at that time.
What I struggle with, and I'm sure there are other people do as well, what the strategy is coming from the White House and from the president when it comes to national security. Because depending on the day, he's best friends with Rand Paul or Lindsey Graham, who couldn't be further apart on national security issues. So we're here talking about pulling out of Syria. And then the next day, he's tweeting about, killing the #2 most powerful man in Iran. So that's my big question, is what is the strategy? And
is there one?
And the people behind him in the White House and in his cabinet, are they all on board with this? It seems like there is a lot of disconnect, and people that, through reports, are saying we had real concerns about this.
Yeah, by all accounts, this was a victory for the Hawks. But it seems like every one of these foreign policy crises is an argument for the president's ear, because he is caught between those two poles, and he has different instincts. He has moved in different directions. He has decried Middle Eastern wars. He's also increased troop presence. And in an instance like this is his more hawkish side coming out. And I think, look, there's always going to be disagreement inside of the administration. I've been struck by how many prominent members of the cabinet were on board for this. It's not just Pompeo. It's also the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
But those are his picks.
They're his picks,
Yeah.
but he has gone against their advice in lots of areas before. John Bolton very much wanted moves like this when he was National Security Advisor. He was ousted because he wasn't seeing enough of it. Now he's cheering from the sidelines. But you're right, Abby. There's no consistency in this, and that does raise questions about what the strategy is.
It's interesting what you're saying, because it doesn't really make sense, because he basically campaigned on not doing this.
Yeah.
And now he's doing it. So it makes me think that it does have something to do with the timing and the wag the dog scenario.
And that's the thing.